So, given what David just said, should we open it up for questions?
Absolutely.
So, open it up for questions.
So it's a great questions. We're not vetting job seekers today. So the primary value that we provide is to provide the connection and sort of facilitate that. So we provide, we provide conferencing tools and things that connect them. So when we provide scheduling tools, we're trying to facilitate that. I guess when I think about the entire process of how people kind of find a job from knowing they need a job all the way through to like the company and getting hired, there's a pretty big like area, and lots of it is broken. And I think we can only really, like at our size and stage, we can really only solve like a small piece in the middle. So our idea is like to really try to solve the hardest part, which is actually getting that connection. Like because if you don't have the connection that you need, if you want to, like John, decide you want to work at Google, right? And you don't have that connection, it is so hard to get one. If you're not already connected with somebody, you reach out on LinkedIn cold, like it's just the response rate people report. MBA students do this all the time, so much that they actually know and talk about like exactly the percentage of people who respond to those LinkedIn requests. It's like 4%. Like it's really, really tiny. So we're just trying to solve right now that hardest part, and then hoping to like work our way out and cover more of it. There's also not much visibility into who actually gets hired at companies. So it's really hard for us to actually know like what happens. So when we come across those stories about like somebody who got hired, like they're actually really precious to us because it's so hard to get the data. Like we know many people have gotten hired, and we had people, when we know the advocate who's on the platform, we had an advocate who was like just a superstar for us, and she was like a friend of someone. She got like half a dozen people hired at Google. And we know she was really excited because Google pays like $6,000 for each one of those. So she actually made a lot of money like referring to
from the companies who do employee referral programs.
Yeah.
Like I like to think we do those, and we learnt from Laszlo Block's work rules book.
Yeah.
You could probably get that data back, right?
That's a good question.
Like you could go to Google and say, hey, how many people did you pay out in terms of employee referrals?
I'm sure they know. They know. But in general, like, I think you'd have to go kind of one by one. It's really hard to understand it.
This gentleman, Deepak, right?
We advise our advocates, first of all, like this is really no different from just having any conversation with someone you sit next to on an airplane, or from like some organization like this one. Like you can't share anything that's like would violate your employment policy. That for sure. Secondly, like there's always a policy on referrals. Typically, the thing that employment policies prohibit is you can't act as a official representative of the company without some like formal sanctioning. So our advocates, and we're super clear to present them as they're independent advisors, and just they're purely having conversations separately. And the fee that happens there, the interesting thing about the fee is we would love to find a way to not charge anybody. But the funny thing about what the money does is it makes the quality of the engagements much higher. People come with, like, first of all, you don't book unless you're very serious, and then you show up for sure because you spent money. And on the advocate side, they're making money, so they show up for sure. So when we actually look at the metrics, because we did lots of free engagements, we actually do an alumni program. Like you couldn't see it if you just looked at the site. So we run alumni programs within the site, and if you join as part of an alumni program, the other people who join as part of the alumni program, typically the advocates who are part of that, all do engagements for free with other alumni. So like, UCLA or Columbia, their students join, they get to meet with people for free. The funny thing about those engagements is lots of no-shows. Lots don't get accepted. Like, they're just not good quality. And what ends up happening sometimes is like, they go down the free route, aren't able to connect with anybody, and then they just do a paid one, and then those are much better. Yeah, these advocates are so not motivated by money. They love doing this. The money is very small. It's sort of like
The advocates, as David said, the advocates set the price, right?
yeah, they can set they set their price.
So some people set really low, like you can spend $2 to talk to me, right? Or you can spend
They're
20.
super low, and all it does, like we usually kind of advise them, like don't make yourself free because you'll just get lots of like
Annoyances.
yeah,
For lack of a better word,
people who aren't
sorry.
serious. You'll get people who aren't serious, but set it to whatever you want, and people set it to super low. I mean, $20 is like nothing, but like people do that like lots.
What
of
is the
them.
minimum?
There's no minimum.
Okay.
So we just advise them like you should set it higher. And the funny thing though is that, and this is maybe like a secret that I'll tell you that sort of gets at like things we discovered and sort of the dynamics of it is that we every now and then we'll get somebody who joins that is super hot in terms of like desirability. Everybody wants to book with them. But they set a price, $20, $25, and they ignore all the requests that come through. And so we had a theory that, and this is really funny, but we had a theory that if their price was higher, first of all, they'd get fewer bookings, but then they would accept more. So what we started doing was, for select people, every time they ignore a booking, we up their price, and we keep doing that. So there was this guy who was on from like, I think it was from like Tesla or something, and he was like, his price is like $25. So like we kept upping it, and pretty soon like we thought like, oh, we upped it so high, like nobody's gonna book with this guy. Somebody did, and guess what? He accepted right away because his price was like 4 times what he originally set it to, and and he did the engagement. Now, for some mysterious reason, that guy later set his price back down to $25. I've no idea why, but
Human psychology is interesting.
we actually, yeah, we don't know, but people do. There's weird things like that we'll sometimes do to try to help solve that. Because what we really want is, we want for advocates to be available. We want to like reward the ones who like accept engagements, who do engagements that have like really high scores. So we're trying to like promote those people the highest. Yeah. Yeah, so some do, some don't. Some of the really great ones we have first asked their HR group and just said, do you have a problem with this? Right. Like, is there something that, there are some companies and groups that we know of where it doesn't work because of their employment policy, so we typically just don't let them on. Well, the US government, at least a lot of the employment contracts that we looked at, they had something that was like just completely precluded them from being able to do it. Yeah.
I mean, I believe powerfully in the value of people that come in through referrals, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I like hiring. Yeah, it's who
It wasn't that they didn't like the referrals. So, like in my career, I worked with lots of HR groups. The one thing that really seemed to be common across all of them is they have this thing about control. And I think the fact that there's people who are on the platform that they didn't put on, that are like having conversations about the company, scares them to death. The ironic thing about it is that nobody would do this who is not absolutely in love with their job and their employer.
Right.
Every single person who's on our platform, like they love it. This is not like,
They're advocates for the company.
I get like why they don't like Glassdoor, because there's like good, there's bad, and guess what? It only takes like 10 seconds to write the scathing review when you're pissed off, and then to like later maybe you regret it, but it's like it's up there, whatever. But it's there, and it's permanent. Our advocates love their job, they love their company, and if we weren't afraid of the advocates like getting harassed and whatever, like we would make their information public, because like these are their company superstars, and we would love to let the company know to say, like these are your,
these people.
you should reward them, exactly. These are your best employees.
Right.
But some are not. They have an issue with the control. Yeah. My co-founder started in San Francisco, so it already had a bit of tech-heavy focus when we started. I worked in advertising, so my view was like people in advertising need this desperately. So there's a bit more technology now. I think it lends itself really well to companies where everybody wants to work. Google, Facebook, Amazon, Tesla. I know they're all the ones that are top of our list. Now, ironically, there are other companies that are not like heavy tech focused. Like PwC is super popular, and people wanting to talk with Deloitte. Some of those. Maybe it's folks who are in like consulting, sort of get it a little bit. Yeah, we've got like a bunch of Accenture. I think there's something about what we do that consultants find interesting. I think there's certain industries that we've theorized would be better than others, like entertainment, because it's just so hard to break in, where it's very notorious. You have to kind of know somebody. Pro sports, like not obviously like being an athlete, but working in like back office of like, yeah, those are like super coveted jobs. So that's what we've kind of thought about it. I think to date, one area that we've not focused nearly enough is we really should be like down more narrow niches, I think. We'd get a lot like faster learnings, I think. I'm hoping we'll probably start doing that a little bit more coming up and trying to just narrow it down. There's so much interesting stuff that relates to diversity. Like we have some plans on our roadmap to try to do a little bit of like diversity marketing from, because we think it's really interesting. I think that we don't yet know how to really make that effective. Like I would love to say that it is going to promote like amazing diversity. We just haven't figured out, I think, the right way to do that. The one thing that I do know that like I think we definitely need to try to spend more time working on is that I think anybody who's part of any kind of group who feels like they wouldn't get the fairest consideration when applying for a job, they automatically, I think, would love to talk with somebody that's more like them. Like on our platform, who maybe has a little bit better of an understanding of like their background. So like veterans is one that's like that, right? You have all of these skills and that may be really difficult to translate to like civilian world. So if you, like let's say you were dying to work at PwC, if you could talk with somebody at PwC who was a former veteran, they could really help like translate some things for you and probably like, I wouldn't even say like give you an edge, it would really just be like leveling the playing field, where now you kind of like understand like how your skills might map and like what you could do. So there's something around that we've been trying to figure out, but
I'm sure in the future, once you eliminate all the distractions, get your growth goals achieved, then you can start looking at the data and start being able to say, oh, we're seeing this trend or we're seeing that trend.
Our overall goal, or I shouldn't say goal, we have a mission that's very clear, that's to sort of like try to democratize access to opportunities, but we have this vision of like what the future of people getting a job could look like, and it's a lot fairer than it is today. There's a lot more kind of transparency in what goes on, and there are ways that people can connect that they couldn't before that makes both parties feel like the whole system is working better. Like we feel like that's possible. It should be. We would love to. We'd love to be able to solve that. The problem is that just from data and experience, like we've measured that the more information the advocate has on the person, the more likely they are to accept it just overall. So we always try to provide the LinkedIn URL so they can actually get more information on them. But it's always swayed towards more information means greater acceptance. Like we haven't actually seen, it feels like we're not seeing as much of that, but like, yeah, it would be great to somehow level that. I don't know how to do it.
You could do A/B testing with someone that's conventionally attractive and someone that's not.
That is possible. We do a ton of A/B testing. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm going to wrap it up if that's okay. Kai will be available, I'm sure, to answer further questions. I'm just going to do a quick announcement with regards to our next event. So the next BTGMY event will be on Thursday, July 20th. Our guest speaker will be Christina Van Houten. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And she's the Senior Vice President of Strategy and Product Management for Infor Global Solutions, which is a $2.5 billion enterprise software provider based in the Flatiron District of Manhattan. Christina has focused her career on driving speed and productivity advancements through methodologies centered around innovation and cooperation. And this event's going to be hosted at their offices, the Infor's offices, which is the corner of 6th Avenue and 20th, so just near the Flatiron building. So I'm sure we'll probably get that event up next week, and hopefully some of you will RSVP to that if you're interested in coming back and joining us. So, and thank you, Kai. Thanks for letting us be a distraction.
No, it was great. It was great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.